All right, pleased to be joined at this time by my good friend, Coach Gary Hughes. Spent 41 years, Coach. Is that right?
That's right.
41 years. I made it 20, and I had to go on to put a suit on and go to central office. So you're at least twice the coach I was.
That's not true.
Coach has stepped out this year. You're not coaching, but I thought what would be a great opportunity. We'll talk about some 4-3 defensive stuff. But I'll tell you this. For what I do with this Parker Resource stuff, for what we're doing, I think it helps me coach that I'm not coaching. And I know that to some degree that can be controversial, that somebody may think, well, why we want to listen to this guy's not coaching? But I actually think not coaching allows me to see things a little clearer and allows me to be more fair in me saying, hey, maybe you ought to look at this or this or this. Sometimes when you're coaching, you're so invested, you just don't really want to see it for what it is. I know this is new for you, but are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, it's the old saying about you can't see the forest for the trees, and I think sometimes when you step out, and you just tend to look at things because for one, I mean, coaching's a high pressure business, and, you don't realize the pressure you're under until you're out,
Mm-hmm.
and then you really realize, how much pressure you were under. But, I think when you step back, I think it gives you a little more clarity, gives you a little more, room maybe to think about things and really evaluate better. At least that's what it's been, for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by it, to be honest. That's why I'm bringing it up. I mean, now it's 3 years for me, but I mean, I was surprised at first when people would ask me questions. I felt like I had better answers for
Right.
them than I did when I was coaching, because I was
Right.
able to just say, we really should have just done this and that. You just so let's get into the detail, Coach. You've been a head coach, been defense coordinator, you've been a lot of things, but you're a 4-3 guy. So we're talking 4-3 defense today. What you got?
Well, I think that I think there's really two schools of thought when it comes to 4-3, and everybody has their own little spin on it, and I've been able to I kind of got in on the earlier ground floor of 4-3 defense back when Jimmy Johnson. That's a blast from the past, but when Jimmy Johnson was Oklahoma State and all those guys that went through that, and I kind of got in on 4-3 back in the 90s, and have just kind of worked through this thing. I worked with Bill Stewart, who is a great football coach, and he and I worked together. For several years we've talked football and 4-3 defense. So I think really everybody has their own little deal, but I really think there's two main things. One is, you've got those folks that want to be a pressure 4-3. They want to get up the field. They want to create havoc, so to speak. And then there's the other school, and that is, you hit people with your hat in your hands, and you separate, and you hold the block, and you keep your linebackers clear. And so I think those are kind of the two different ways people view it. We're more of a squeeze and spill team. So we're going to try to keep our linebackers free. We're going to try to keep those guys. And now the interesting thing of it is what happens when you don't have those linebackers that can make the plays? What happens when you've got a better defensive front? Do you switch philosophies? And I think that's kind of like, it's got to be what you are, what you can believe. Now I do think there's some merit to creating havoc and all that, and I've kind of built that into our package over the years. But we've been a squeeze and spill team for a long time, even when we didn't have the best set of linebackers that we've ever had. We still felt like, he's a good football player, he wouldn't be playing for us, or at least he's the best linebacker that we've got. And so I think part of it is just being able to do the things right up front to create problems. And for instance, one of the things that I've always been a fan of is being able to slant across people's face.
Mhm.
I just felt like, I was an offensive lineman in high school and in college. And I think one of the things when you think back to those kinds of times, you look at it and you think if a guy's a three technique, you're assuming he's going to be a B gap guy. But when all of a sudden he crosses your face into the A gap, you got a chance to have a real problem. Now, what I've always felt like it was that we wanted to hit you in the mouth and try to create a stalemate for us wins, because you're not blocking linebackers, and the fact that we're shaded to one gap or the other makes you either double team us to get us out of the way, or you go to the linebacker and now we've got a arm and leg free in that one side. So but just being able to do that consistently and then crossing your face from time to time, for me, I always felt like that was the best of both worlds, to be able to stone you at the line of scrimmage, but then at the same time slant across your face with everybody up front, or two of the four, or all four guys going across your face. And to me, that's just been the best answer, because sometimes some years you do more slanting.
Right.
Some years you're bigger and you're more physical up front, and you can do those things. I personally love the teaching part. I love the teaching part of the front seven. I like being able to let those guys know this is what you got to do. And probably the best selling point, in my opinion, after all these years, that 4-3, you're only going to get about 4 or 5 different schemes.
Right.
You draw it up on paper, there's only so many ways you can block 4-3. I mean, if you have whether you play a shade, a 1, or whether you play a 2-eye on the weak side or not, you're probably going to be in a 3. You're probably going to be in a 9 or a 6, on the strong side, and 5. There's only so many possibilities that you can do. So the way I've always looked at it is, if I can teach linebackers, this is what's going to happen when this happens and this happens, you can bet this is the scheme that's coming, and you learn to recognize those schemes. And so to me, it simplifies things. It just simplifies things, and that way we know what's coming.
Coach, you've been doing this 41 years. You've seen a wide array of offenses changing.
Oh yeah.
And in a lot of those years, you've been running basically the same defense.
Sure.
What's changed the most with the spread stuff? What's made the 4-3 a little harder, or what have you had to tweak because of what you see now compared to what you saw even 10, but definitely 20 or 30 years ago?
Well, I think a lot of it was, same as everybody else, 50 defense goes to 3-4, kind of a deal. It's about getting the kids that can cover, that can run on defense, that can get to a flat, get to a curl, that can read a route. So, the advent of the 4-2-5 was kind of the beginning of defenses beginning to change, beginning to at least admit, okay, I need another safety. I don't need a wheel linebacker. I need a safety in the game, and we'll balance the box. And so presto changeo, you're looking at 4-2-5, which is really 4-3. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, they just sliding the backers. That's all.
Yeah, you've just nickeled it up, and I think that in itself has created enough consternation for people on defense to say we've got to be able to apex this guy, we've got to be able to drop this guy down, and so you come down. Do you want to play a 4-1 box where they've got a hat on a hat, offensively, or do you want to play a 4-2 box and take your chances? And I think that's where you have to just make your decision. Of course, you can get to man and solve a lot of problems, or man free and solve a lot of problems, but that puts you in man. Yeah, I put you in man. So, but I think a lot of it is the thing. I guess the thing that I like about being 4-3 is that it is virtually symmetrical. I mean, you've got a Mike that's got basically one leg on each side of the ball, and then everybody else is on left side or right side. Now, if you go to a trip steal or something like that, we're going to account for that because you cheated over. You have an extra man on that side. We're gonna slide over so that we can keep the numbers the same. But I like it just because it's simple, and it keeps things. There's no drop in, there's no rush in, there's no, all the problems that you get coordinating the ends drop, the cover call and the front call and those kinds of problems. Because I've dabbled in some 3-4 stuff, and I know when I coached in college, we were a 3-4 team, and I realized then the headaches that you had, and that's why I moved to a 4-3 for that exact reason, just because trying to eliminate mistakes that you can just because you don't have to make it, you can simplify your scheme a little bit. And that's kind of what I feel like has happened is that people have put that extra safety in the game or whatever. And then, there's been times when we've replaced the Will linebacker and the Sam linebacker, but there again, you're kind of putting yourself in a 4-1 box, which is there a time and a place for that? Yeah, I think there is. But, the old saying about if you can't stop the run, it doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah,
well, and I've made lots of mistakes in my life, and one of them, when Dobbs was at Alpharetta, and this was several years back, but we felt like we needed to defend the pass first, and they ran the football right down our throat. He had 200 and something yards running, and it was another one of those. I knew what I was doing, and I knew, despite what I knew, it was a mistake. So I just kind of go back to that, and try to play that first.
Yeah, I think the evolution of the offenses is they're becoming actually more not predictable, not easier to defend, but they are becoming more the same.
Right.
So you see a lot of the same stuff every week. In that regard, it's not much different than 41 years ago, where you saw a lot of the same stuff every week.
Right.
It was just something different.
Right.
So I think defensively, obviously, you need to be able to disguise and bring pressure from a bunch of places and all the stuff people do with the odd fronts that I do like. But I think there's some merit now to doing something a little bit different. I don't see as many teams as I used to. I actually see very few playing that traditional 4 down. The 5s have to be pretty good ball players because, they got to set edges of some kind anyway. Even if they're squeezing, they got to set an edge. And I just don't see that. I see some 4 down, but it's 4 down up the field.
Right.
And I see so I see some merit in people doing something different. I'm seeing people on offense going back to some more under center stuff, even, and just because it's different.
Yeah, right.
And I think you're going to see more of that stuff on defense there too. What about in the secondary? What was something in the secondary that you thought was a key or is still a key, but one of the fundamentals to a good secondary play, because you're going to play 4 across, 2 high, I guess. So what was a fundamental for that?
Well, I just felt like, again, I think you have to frame it with your philosophy. And I think you got to say, in high school football, this is firmly my belief, in high school football, you're more likely to beat yourself than you are to beat them. I mean, give people a chance. And of course, that's not true. The great teams, you got to play. But I'm talking about, the 6 out of 10 teams, that maybe the 7, depending on your region and your out of region play. I just think you have to give people another chance to beat themselves. And that may sound like it's coming at it backwards, but I just don't want us to beat ourselves. And so we stayed pretty vanilla in the secondary. We would play some man, we'd play some zero, we'd play some man free, and we would play a palms coverage to change it up a little bit. But I would say that the bulk of what we've done for years has been cover 4 and cover 3. If you give us trips, we might be in man, we might be in cover 3, we might be in zero. And hopefully we disguise it where you can't really tell until the ball is snapped what's going on. But I just feel like the even though you may give some ground, you're not going to give up the big one. That, to me, as a head coach, it's just shameful. I mean, you just going to. I don't even know how I don't know how your mind even works when you give that up. And so that has been one of the things over my years is just don't give up the big one, because the next play, they may fumble the ball, they may throw an interception, you may get a sack, you may create problems, but you don't know because you try to play something that you're not very good at, or you got in a man, and there's nothing wrong with man. I like to play a fair amount of man, but again, I just think you have to limit what your liabilities are. So we've been a cover 4 team, cover 3 team, some cover 2, and the right, if you're going to get a lot of 2x2, and that's a change up for us. In fact, back when this goes way back, back when you were at Sequoia, one of the change ups that I had when I was at Etowah was being able to give you a cover 4 look and then roll it, to a cover 2, to a hard cover 2. So you run a hitch, you run a quick out into a hard corner, and that puts enough doubt in your mind as a play caller that maybe it looks like 4, but maybe it's 2. And so the underneath stuff not as good. Now you've got 5 underneath instead of having 3 underneath.
Yeah, I love that cover 2. It was hard to teach for us. We struggled, or I just didn't know what I was doing enough or something. I don't know, but I can attest that those teams y'all had at Etowah took it to us a little bit. we struggled to move the football on them.
Wow.
Coach, what was in a game planning or a practice? What's something that comes out that you can give somebody some advice on, something they can do at practice or something they can do during the week game planning, either one, that's something they can carry with them as they listen to this?
Well, I think, and this is what I used to tell all of our guys, when we would meet is, all these ideas are great, and everybody has their own ideas. And one day, hopefully everybody gets a chance to be in charge of a group, of men and players, to do that. But all the ideas are fine and great. The reason why you got a leader in the room is to be able to say no. And I say no simply because of this, because if you run in there with 6 or 7 coverages, you run in there with 5 or 6 fronts, and then all the blitzes that come with it, and they move one guy from the inside receiver on the left all the way across right there, all of a sudden now your blitz may change. Mm-hmm. And or they may trade the tight end, and so now you're in a situation where your kids have got to think a little bit. And this was what I used to tell our guys. Okay, how many times are we going to be able to practice that during the week? Because as well as I do, Coach, you might get, I'm talking about team time, you might get 25 good plays done, in a team environment, a scout team environment each day. And so if you practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're going to look at 75 plays. And out of that 75 plays, you've got to get their 5 best runs done. You've got to get their best passes done. And you've got motions, you've got shifts. So you're going to get all your coverages and all your fronts and all your blitzes done to all that stuff in 1 week's time. And I just think that's where people make the error, because sure enough, again, if you go with the philosophy that you don't want to beat yourself, well, that's one way to do it. You do a lot of stuff in there that you haven't had a lot of reps at. Now, passing league helps. Okay, it does, because you can get a lot of reps on that, but it's not the same, as on a Friday night when the bullets are really flying. So my caution has always been, there's nothing wrong with adding things. We just got to make sure that we're committed to doing it, and that you have time to practice what you're doing. Because three reps, 5 reps, 10 reps a week on something, and they do something unexpected, and now you've got a problem. You've got a bust somewhere, and I guarantee you that's what happens most of the time. That is, you have those guys that are running down the middle of the field wide open, is just because they just lost their concentration or didn't know what to do because they hadn't seen that. So that's kind of been the overriding factor in terms of what to throw, what to add, and what to drop out. It's just to do that. And the younger coaches, they're, bless their heart, we were all one, and you got a lot of good stuff. And but at the end of the day, Friday night at 10 o'clock, you got to make sure that it wasn't something you did, that you allowed to happen, on your watch.
Yeah, go-to line for us on here is, before you can win the game, you
Right.
cannot lose it.
Yep, that's it.
Many people lose the game before they could ever even win it. So you don't always win if you don't lose, but you never win if you do lose it early. So, I agree, Coach. So many people leave, you can't afford to leave people wide open. And I think that may be a lesson people can take from this. They want to run a 4-3. They may have more questions for you. If they don't want to run a 4-3, they at least can understand the premise. What I thought was tough, and I can personally attest playing against you guys, was how hard it was to get the big plays. It was hard to get the 15, 20 plus yard plays.
Right.
We knew where you were going to be every play. So, we could move the football. We could get 4 or 5 yards on something because, we knew the angles on something. We knew where you're going to be. But making it difficult to move big plays made it tough to score. We have a decent, we may have had 15 or 20 plays we could put on a clinic tape or something like that, gain 7 yards, but we didn't have but 17 points or 10 points or, something that just wasn't going to win the game. And when we did win the games against good teams like that, it was that we just found a way to, somebody fell down, we got a big play here and there or whatever. So playing some sound defense, playing over the top, playing the 4 across like y'all did, squeezing and scraping, you're just not gonna if everybody knows their assignment, you're not gonna give up very much big plays, unless the dude's just flat better than you. And look, we're not coaching for that. If the team's way better than you, there's not much you can do about it.
But you do what you want.
Yeah, we're talking about games where the teams are within 25% of each other, and that's what I talk about here. There's a chunk of games where there's teams like you may be at Buford, and 4 or 5 of the teams you just probably didn't have to practice all weekend be. And that's okay too.
Right.
But they still have, everybody's got a group of teams they're probably going to beat or a group of teams they're probably going to lose to. And then there's that group in the middle that you've got to try to win all of those if you want to have a special season. And the best way to lose those games is to give up some big plays.
Yep. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And even you get to those, again, I think it's got to be part of your DNA that you understand that, it's a 7-7 game, or it's a 17-17 game, or 24-24, whatever it is. And you can't make the mistake at any point in that. One post route, that's given up because you're in the wrong position or whatever. You didn't get the right pressure. You didn't get whatever the deal is. And all of a sudden now you're down and you've been fighting it out the whole time. That's hard for me to live with. And I know the reputation that I've had is it's a very conservative thought, but I just always felt like if we could keep people from beating themselves, in other words, our guys, if we could keep our guys from beating themselves, that would always give us a chance. Always give us a chance to at least be there. Maybe it's a 3-0, maybe you're up 3-0, coach, or something like that, or 7-0, which means we're 1 play away. But when you start giving up those big plays, trying to overreach, I think that's when you run into problems. You're doing stuff that maybe it looks good on paper and it's great, to draw it up on the board. But I just think you have to really buy into what you're saying, and actually do it, in the game. And sometimes that's hard.
Yeah, it's easier said than done. I'm just saying you have to find a scheme that you can practically put in, not just something that sounds good. So, yeah, it's easier said than done, no doubt. If it was easy, everybody do it and every team
That's
win.
right.
Half the team's going to win every week, half going to lose. It's, it's really a lot simpler than people make it out to be. Coach, I appreciate you joining me. We'll have you on. Maybe we'll make a segment of it. We'll talk some 4-3 ball. We'll get into some specifics of some, positions or something maybe. And
love to do it. Yeah, love to do it.
Or something. Now that you're not as busy, you're going to find like me, you got to find something to do because you spent 40 years working all day, every day.
My wife's got plenty of things. Yeah.
It's nice for a few weeks, but then you kind of like, find something to do.
Yeah.
So we'll have you out there, Coach. Good to talk to you, man. And I hope to see you soon.
Well, I appreciate you. I hope I was helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
Okay.